This is my husband, Justin, and he did something super crazy. He launched a business in March 2020, about a week before the entire economy shut down. And despite that, in his first 12 months of business, and despite the fact that he was only working about part-time, I think it averaged out to about 20 hours
Probably
a week.
20 hours a week.
He made $87,000.
So I like those apples.
Yeah, we like them a lot. So we're gonna actually walk you through what we did to help him build this business throughout a pandemic, throughout all of the upheaval and uncertainties, and through what was essentially a closed down economy, and still be able to turn a profit. And now going into his second year of business, it was a good year. It was a good year, and this is gonna be another great year. So let's talk about what we did to help him to be able to do this. The first thing that I want to really talk about in terms of what helped him to do this was that he wasn't new to his business. He was new to this business, but he wasn't new to the business or the industry.
So I'm a Finnish carpenter, been a Finnish carpenter for over 20 years now. So I'm highly skilled at that. Comes super easy, enjoy it, love it.
And I think it's really important to understand that people that do go into business and they are making good money in their first year, they're generally not coming into this totally green in all areas. He was not green when it came to carpentry. He was really green when it came to business, and especially a B2C business. He had worked B2B before, subcontracting with other companies, but this was the first time he really was marketing himself directly to the client. And so that was a very new skill. But because he had the skills in carpentry, he had one less thing that he had to try to figure out.
Right.
So I want to preface this video with that, because if you're going into a new business and a new industry where you're gaining that skill as well, you got to be realistic with what that's going to take. I just realized that our freaking microphone's not plugged in, so we're just gonna. All right, now that we have better audio, let's keep going. The first thing that we really did to help him set up his business well from the beginning.
Yeah, within the first month.
We spent a lot of time figuring out who he wanted his ideal client to be.
Just really sitting down and zoning in on who my client was, where I'm going to find my client, what they're looking for.
What their expectations would be.
Yeah.
Right? So he went into it saying, okay, who do I want to work with? Do I want to work with somebody who's on a budget, who's doing a DIY project? Do I want to do something higher end? And he had to choose that for himself. And then once he chose that person, then really getting into their psychology and saying, okay, what does this person expect from me? Right? So he chose to work with somebody they don't want a DIY project. They want something done well. They've probably had some experience with carpenters or contractors in the past that were a nightmare. Mm-hmm. And they're willing to pay to save them time, energy, and money by getting the right person the first time. And it's interesting because a lot of his reviews over this past year have been, I hired somebody else first and I wish I'd hired him. It was because of that we were really able to shape ourselves, or to help him shape his marketing and his branding, to really say, I'm the person that you hire when you don't want to have those headaches. You don't need more headaches. You don't need more of a hassle. You deserve a really great home, and I can help you to create that.
And I really think, over the past year, figuring out who my ideal client was, knowing who that was, made it so much easier for moving forward. Mm-hmm. Knowing who that person was. And you can tell within a 10-minute conversation. Yeah. And you're like, oh, we're going to be a perfect fit. And it just goes so much smoother knowing that.
Or this is not my ideal client and I need to turn down this thing.
Yeah.
And so this is what I tell a lot of people in the inner circle when they're dealing with business issues. So many times it's because you don't have that foundation of understanding your ideal client, what their needs are, what their problems are, what their expectations are, any of those things as it relates to your business, right? So as a contractor, he needed to understand all of those things enough to get him going. But I really saw over the year, he refined those things as well. So it's not like you're figuring all of this out and then it's good and you never touch it again. He was really learning all of these things and fine-tuning them as he went.
You're always going to be fine-tuning it too.
Absolutely. And here's a reason why it's so important. Once he understood who he really wanted to target, that showed him where his marketing needed to be, showed him where his ads needed to be, showed him everything. Everything else gets determined based on that person that you're there to serve. And so I think you did that really well, not because I had anything
And finding
to do
your
with
ideal
it.
client, it just makes work that much more fun and
gosh.
that much more enjoyable. You're not
Yes.
butting heads with somebody. You're not arguing with somebody because they want it done a certain way.
And that's true of any service-based business especially, but product-based businesses as well. If you're attracting nightmare clients, that's on you. You need to go back to the drawing board and redo those foundations, figuring out who your ideal client is, because your nightmare client is not your ideal client. And I know that sounds obvious, but the number of people that I talk to who say, well, my ideal client is just a headache. Well, my ideal client just doesn't pay for those types of things. Well, then they're not your ideal client. They're your nightmare.
Yeah.
Figure out who your ideal client is and then figure out where they're hanging out and how to reach them and how to talk to them, because those are the people that you want to build your business with. And I'm so glad you said that, because if you build a business based on people that you love to serve, you're going to love your business. And if you build it based on headaches and nightmares,
then you're going to drag them on to work every day.
Yeah.
And, you can, I don't know, you could tell real quick.
You can.
You guys are going to.
You can. When you know your ideal client inside and out, you can pick them out of a lineup in less than 10 minutes. Like you can have within a minute or two, if you're on the right track with this person or not. And it saves you so much time, headache, hassle, money, frustration, everything.
Yeah. I think I took one job that I did not think was going to be my ideal client, and I really regretted it last year.
Yep.
And
I
learned from
Only
it.
one.
Yeah.
Damn.
Like everything else, I was like, I don't think we're going to be a good fit, and I'm so glad I did. It just it makes working so much more enjoyable.
Yeah. And you really build confidence too when you're working with the right people. You want to destroy your confidence, work with the wrong people. That will just make you feel absolutely terrible about yourself. So, ideal client work. Out the wazoo, we really delved deep into that. A lot of our dinner conversations were around ideal client and is this aligning with the ideal that you're wanting to align with, and just making sure over time that we're coming back to it again and again and again. I mean, most of our conversations over the past year have been, is this aligning with that client? Mm-hmm. So highly recommend that one. Numero 3. So when he got started as a finished carpenter, there's a lot of different things that he can do. But within a matter of a couple months, once we had some metrics to start looking at, I really encouraged him to niche down into his top 3 offers. And we really focused those top 3 offers based on profit margin, right? He's a solopreneur. When you're a solopreneur especially, you got to focus on profit margin. And that means serving a certain clientele with a certain type of product or service until you have the ability to serve more with more offers. Once he had done enough jobs and we had enough of an idea of what those profit margins were going to look like, we could then sit down and say, okay, what are the top 3 things that you really want to be focusing on in your business? We were looking at profit margins, but we were also looking at
what I enjoy to do.
What he enjoys to do. So it was helpful for him to be able to say, okay, crown molding, it's easy on my body. I love to do it, and it's a high profit margin, and it fits my ideal client, what they're going for. Kitchen installs is another one. And then what was your third?
Any kind of trim work. So it'd be like accent walls, base.
Yeah. Like really custom trim work type of stuff. So knowing those things, the great thing I think about that was that it's so easy as a new business owner to focus on so many things that you spread yourself too thin. Yeah. And then you can't really get known for anything because you're trying to do everything. And so him being able to focus on those 3 things showed him where to market. It showed him how to market, and it just helped to simplify the process, because there's so much that goes into your first 1, 2, 3 years of business. Mentally, emotionally, physically, you're figuring out so many things. You're doing so much personal growth. You got to simplify. You got to build fewer things.
Simplify, zone in on your bread and butter, your 2, 3 things that are going to make you the most money. Do the crap out of those for the first couple of years, and then zone in on those 3 things. And then from there I can branch out.
Or bring in other people to do some of the other stuff, right? Yeah. So it's the same philosophy with any other product or service-based business. You focus in on just generally one thing, but if you've got something like this, you're probably going to be doing more than one thing. But you focus in on a narrow option, a narrow offer. Get really good at that. Zone in, master the sales process, master the marketing, master the delivery, master all of that. Because once you master that, then you can go and duplicate it in something else, and it's faster. And you've got the revenue now and the flexibility in your business to be able to do that. But if you're going in 10 directions, you ain't going nowhere. The fourth thing that we really focused on, or the fourth thing we want to talk about here, is the number one way that he brought in all of that revenue. I was kind of surprised looking at this because most of the time when you're talking about a service-based business that's local, he's a contractor, you're looking at advertising as being the number one way of bringing in money, right? Over the past year, how much did you spend in 2020 on marketing, on advertising?
Probably just a little bit over $1,000
altogether
for the whole year.
Okay. Yeah. So about $1,000 to make $87,000 is a really good return.
Yeah, I'd say for like the first 9 months, I didn't advertise at all. It was all word of mouth and networking.
When you're a solopreneur, and especially as a service-based business, you need to focus in on relationships, not on throwing money into advertising that you don't know yet converts, right? You need to build up your testimonials, you need to build up a portfolio, you need to build up relationships, you need to get out in the community, you need to connect and talk with people. And that's what he did. He focused on referrals from clients. He focused on getting testimonials because that can gain referrals. Yeah. The advertising that we're doing now is based around testimonials from people. Like we put testimonials out as ads. And then networking with other professionals in his industry, people that are going to refer business to him. Most
of my work has been referrals and just networking.
With designers, with cabinet companies, with trim companies, suppliers, things
General
like that.
Contractors.
Yeah, GCs, people that he knows need him and he needs them. But what he found was because he knew his ideal client was not going to go on Yelp. Right? They're less likely to go on Yelp. So we've done some experimenting with Yelp ads, but they've been nothing compared to going out and talking to people, going out and just meeting a supplier or a cabinet company or a designer and building that relationship and letting that person know who he is, know what sets him apart in terms of quality of work and customer service. And then they sell him for him, right? Like they're going to go out and really encourage other people to use them, in part because they want to work with him too, right? They want an easy, great experience as well. So he really invested in creating great experiences, creating great relationships, networking the crap out of it. And that's gotten him to the point where now he needs to hire other people. The goal going into this next year is to increase that and then slowly start putting money into ads that bring people into those same things, that bring people to testimonials, that show his work, things like that, so that he's feeding the well from that end, but really still primarily focusing on relationships at this stage of his business.
I also think like doing stuff on social media is super helpful too. Like if it's just like a couple pictures of your work or a short video of what you're doing today, and then referring clients to that so they can see and learn a little bit about you, and you kind of sell yourself doing it that way. That's helped me out a ton. I always refer people over to my page and whatnot. Website, my Facebook business page, that kind of thing.
And I think the thing that's important to recognize here is that he's not saying using social media marketing as the main means of like bringing people in. He's not putting all of his eggs in social media marketing and saying this is what's got to build the business. He's putting it in the things that are building the business the fastest, which is relationships. But he's using that social media to nurture those relationships even further. And then the next thing that really helped him to do this and to do it in a streamlined way and to do it so that he is working as few hours as possible, because he is a solopreneur. So he is wearing all the hats in his business right now, other than the business coach that he is married to. So he has somebody to get support from and get mentoring from, but he's doing everything else in his business. In order to do that, he really had to focus on putting systems in place from day one. So do you want to talk about some of the systems that made the biggest difference for you?
Having a spreadsheet together for estimates on what things cost, not having to go and look things up or run to Home Depot or to the supply store, going there once or twice and getting a whole list of things, putting it on a spreadsheet. That way I could just punch in the numbers. I bet you that's probably saved me a good 5 hours a week.
Oh,
easy.
At least. Basically what we did was we looked to see, okay, what are the things that are going to take you the most time and how can we streamline those things and simplify them? So we created a price list. We broke that price list down into categories. Everything that he might need in terms of supplies, materials, or time goes into that. And it's all I gotta take some credit for this. I put this
did it
bad
all
boy
by
together.
myself.
You did not. I put this bad boy together where if he can put in the number of square footage and it will populate what his price is going to be for labor. He can put in the number of saws that he needs for it and it's going to populate the total over here. It puts in a cushion so that he makes sure that he has enough of profit margin. It can put in tax. Like, we got everything in there. So he needs to go in and just fill out 5 things. It all populates over there. I was so proud of that spreadsheet. Yeah. I am not a spreadsheet queen at all, but I put this together because I knew if we didn't,
queen, man.
I am now. I feel like one, but I knew if we didn't create this for him, this was going to be a bottleneck in his business. And that's the thing that I want you to really take away from this. Look for the things that are a bottleneck in your business and what can you do to be able to streamline or smooth out those things to make them easier. So some other things that we wrote down for this, invoicing, we got his invoice template all set up. We got all of the terminology or the warranty or the fine print all figured out. So he never has to look at any of that. And it's all evergreen. It works on every invoice that he puts in. His follow-up systems, right? So when he has somebody reach out to him, we have systems in place that automate, that send him reminders at certain intervals if he hasn't checked things off, and that send them emails so that he gets certain emails back from them or gets information back from them. If he's done with a project, he has systems in place where he just clicks a button and it sends him an email for referrals or for reviews, things like that. Anything that we knew that he might forget, that might take up time, that might take energy, that might take him away from the core things of his business, which is doing great work and building relationships. That's the core of his business. Even sales is about relationships and doing great work. Everything else that could be automated or systemized, we automated and systemized the crap out of it. That's the benefit of him being married to me. Not only is he married to a business coach, he's married to a business coach that values not working your ass off and burning yourself out, because I've been there. And so we've really been able to help him set that up and notice, bottlenecks or notice potential problems before they actually became a problem, just based on experience. You want to talk a little bit about the screening and the sales calls and how systems help with that? Being
in carpentry, you always people are like, hey, can you come out and give me an estimate? And, I really zeroed it down into having like a 10, 15 minute phone call with them, asking them a couple questions and kind of screening them to see if I was if we were a good fit to work together.
Before going out,
spending gas,
putting a bid together,
putting everything
all
together.
Of that.
I'll give them a ballpark estimate on what I think it is off of the pictures and talking with them. And, if they say, yeah, that sounds fine, then I come out there and I do my thing. You get them an estimate, put it together, and usually pick up a deposit the same day that I go out there. So
basically, it's because he has a system in place for his phone calls that he's able to save all this other time, right? So literally everything is systemized. So before he was doing this, before he had this system in place, he would go out and he would maybe get 1 out of 5 jobs that he would bid, basically for the sole reason that person was either not a good fit or they didn't have it in their budget and they didn't know what to expect budget-wise. Once he could figure that out, he could put together a system in place where a 5 to 10 minute phone call eliminates all of that. So now you probably get what, 4 out of 5 bids that you make? Simply because he put that little system into place. So wherever your bottlenecks are in your business or wherever they could be, you got to start looking at, okay, what can I do to smooth this out, to streamline this, to systemize this, to make this better, to avoid this problem. Trust me when I say that there's always a solution. It's just a matter of finding it. And having a business mentor, obviously being married to a business coach, is a huge benefit. But if you don't have that, find a mentor. Find somebody that can help you. And they don't even have to be in your industry.
Somebody that's been through it. I mean, why waste the time and make the mistakes that somebody's made them already? Talk to them, learn from them.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be in your industry. Like I don't work in his industry. I don't have personal experience in his industry, but I have enough business experience to have been able to guide him through this. There are times that you need somebody who's industry specific. We did get some of that for him to fill in some gaps. And there are times when you don't. But the number one thing you do need is you need mentorship. And that probably should have been the last thing that we wrote on this list. He had a lot of mentorship, a lot of support, a lot of guidance, and he's skilled up. He was skilled as a carpenter, but coming into it as a business owner
and sales, like
that's totally different
never
skills.
did that before. I think like I really zoned in on anybody that wanted to meet up and get an estimate. I wanted that experience of going and meeting people and talking with them. So I get comfortable.
And that happened because he had mentorship and he developed his skills, right? He didn't just say, I'm good at carpentry and that's enough. He said, okay, I'm good at carpentry, but here are the things that I struggle with and here are the things I need to focus on. So I just did a few videos ago on how to start a business and questions to ask yourself as you're starting your business. I highly recommend going back through those, even if you've already started your business, because if your first year has felt like hell on earth, that just is showing you things that need to be developed, either in yourself, in your skills, or in your business. It's just showing you where your gaps are. And when you have mentorship or you have support or you have insight that's going to help you to fill those gaps, things get smoother and get faster. So already he is, I think you hit your first 5-figure month on month 4, right?
Yeah, it was March, April, May, June. Yeah. June.
And now he's averaging twice that in a month, just over the past, 8 months ago. Yeah. So the trajectory and how things can speed up, it gets better and smoother and easier as you go. If you are doing the work, you're doing the right work, right? It's really easy to do a lot of work, but not be working on the right things. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful. Our purpose of this is just to give you some insight into what it takes to be able to do this. Not to brag about it, to support and encourage and inspire you, because business is rough. It's hard. It's going to stretch you. It's going to challenge you. You're going to change so much over your first 12 months or your next 12 months of business. If you're really in it to win it, like if you really want to do the work, that's what's required, massive growth. And so hopefully this gives you some insight, shows you some things that you might need to be focusing on. And if you need more support with it, there's links in the description on how I might be able to support you with that as well. Fist bump in the comments if you made it to the end of this one. Give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful, encouraging, or inspiring in any way. Drop us a comment or questions if you have any. We're happy to do what we can to support you.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
A blatant plug for my wife. She really knows like business coaching and setting up systems and stuff like that.
Babe.
Like I would probably only be like half as far or so if she wasn't helping me. Like she knows what she's talking about.
I didn't ask him to say any of that.
No, she didn't.